Hey guys, I hope that you've had a great weekend and I hope that you're ready to dive back into some learning this week. Even though we're not at school, we still have some awesome opportunities to learn. I have loved seeing all the different things you guys are learning about, from reading and math to gardening and cooking and all the fun things that you're doing. It's really awesome. All the things you're doing right now at home, outside, inside, helping your parents. Everything you're doing, you're learning. It may not seem like it if you're not sitting at a desk and listening to a teacher or doing a page of work, but you really are learning more right now than you could ever imagine. And so I'm really proud of you and all that you've been putting into your brain over the past few weeks. This is week 3 of our distance learning, and I know that you're just gonna crush it. Anyway, let's get started with what I know that you're waiting for. We're waiting for The Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell, and we're on chapter 8, which is going to be a lot shorter than chapter 7, so we should be able to get through it pretty quickly. I've been dying to see what's going to happen. In our last chapter at the very end, we found out that Alex and Connor had a lot of different things they were going to have to search for, and it was kind of in a riddle, all the things they needed to do the wishing spell, and so now they're on that journey to find all the items so that they can make the wish and they can go back home. I think there's going to be a lot of twists and unexpected turns though. All right, so chapter 8 is called A Hidden Place. And that's the picture. So let's see what's going to happen. You can probably predict from looking at the picture kind of what's going to happen. Chapter 8, A Hidden Place. The northern tip of the Sleeping Kingdom was an ugly and vacant place. Vacant means that there weren't any people or animals. It was known for its bare trees, bumpy paths, and dangerously high cliffs. Small stones were scattered on the earth, making it nearly impossible to travel by carriage. Even though it rained every so often, nothing ever grew, making it impossible for any animals to live there. See? In the middle of this dry and deserted place was a small castle surrounded by a deep and empty moat. It was ancient and made of dark bricks, wooden doors, and had been through years of decay. No one knew who had built the castle or why it had been built, but then again, very few people even knew of its existence. The inside of the castle was covered in a thick layer of dust. Cobwebs almost as old as the castle were on every windowsill, even though there were no spiders to be found. All the rooms and corridors were empty, except for the occasional decrepit chair or table placed in the corner. A great wall completed the eastern wing of the castle. A great hall completed the eastern wing of the castle. Floor-length windows bordered the hall, letting in a lot of light. But they were so old that the glass distorted the outside world. The castle couldn't have been a less desirable place to be. But for one woman, it was the perfect place to hide. I wonder who this woman is going to be. You really never know with this story who you're going to run into. Somehow, the evil queen had escaped the dungeons of Snow White's palace. She managed to get a hold of her magic mirror and traveled to a place where she knew she would never be found. The castle acted as the perfect sanctuary where she could finish the work she had started so long ago. The evil queen was not a stranger to this place. Over the last century or so, many people had come to the castle, but only she had a few others were fortunate enough to have left it, including someone the former queen had not seen in a great while. She had recently sent word to this old friend asking him to come and aid her. And so she waited for him to arrive, knowing that he would any day now, for he owed her his life. The evil queen stood facing her magic mirror with open palms and closed eyes. She was quite calm for being the most wanted woman alive. To her right, resting on a short stool, was the heart of stone she had always kept close. Although it was one of the most infamous objects in all of the kingdoms, very few people had ever seen the evil queen's magic mirror. Many believed it was made of glamorous materials like gold and diamonds and glass, so pure she would swear they could walk through it. In reality, the mirror was tall and wide with a black frame that peaked at the top. Tangled vines made of cast iron wove through the frame. The reflection was cloudy, as if it were a glass doorway into a very cold and foggy place. Although there was very little moisture in the air, perspiration dripped down the glass. The evil queen opened her eyes and gazed deep into the mirror. Mirror, mirror, on the wall, how long till the huntsman answers my call? She asked it. The ghostly silhouette of a man appeared in the reflection. It spoke slowly and softly with a low and hoarse voice. While my queen awaits an old friend, once dear, the huntsman travels very near. The man in the mirror slowly faded away. Within moments, 3 loud knocks came from the other side of the great hall doors. You may enter, the queen said. The doors opened, creaking terribly, and a man entered the hall. He was tall, broad, and just on the verge of old age. He wore a variety of animal skins and had a limp in his right leg. His beard was light brown and graying. A crossbow was attached to his back, and a large hunting knife hung from his waist. My huntsman has returned, the evil queen said. The huntsman walked across the hall to where the evil queen was standing. It's been a long time since I last saw your face, she said, and I still find it hard to stomach looking at you. The huntsman fell to his knees and wept at her feet. She's mean. Your Majesty, the huntsman cried, please forgive me, for I've never forgiven myself after failing you. The evil queen looked down at him coldly. She said she had no sympathy left inside her for anyone. After all that you have done for me, and after all the mercy you had shown me, I could not kill the princess in the forest, the huntsman said. And just look at all the pain it has caused you. Had I just done as you asked, you would still be queen. The evil queen let his pathetic sobs continue for a while longer. She showed no sign of forgiveness. He deserved to feel this way. She stepped away from the huntsman and peered through a window at the lifeless land that surrounded them. So we've learned that this huntsman, the evil queen ordered him to kill the princess. However, he didn't do his job. You and I were both prisoners in this castle once, the evil queen said. I never imagined that one day it would act as my only refuge. You saved me, the huntsman said. I surely would have died here had it not been for you. That is why I swore to you then that I would do anything to assist you with your mission. But I failed you. And after all this time, I am still on the same mission as I was back then. So do not cry, old friend. I have called you here for a chance at redemption. She walked back to him and gently placed a hand on his cheek. The huntsman stopped crying and looked up at the queen with huge, sad eyes. Redemption? The huntsman asked. You mean, Your Majesty, you're still going to give me a chance to serve you after what I've done? The huntsman's tears quadrupled in size, and he continued sobbing. Curse this world for claiming you to be anything less than the saint you are. I'd kill every person who's tarnished your name if I could. That won't be necessary, the queen said. I have another task for you. It requires a great deal of traveling, and since being the most wanted fugitive alive prevents me from doing it myself, I have called you here. The huntsman grew quiet and lowered his head shamefully. Your greatness, he said. I have grown too old to travel. I can barely walk as it is. The evil queen looked down at him with an angry brow. You imbecile, she said, raising her voice. You mean to tell me you traveled all the way here to tell me you are useless? The huntsman rose to his feet with difficulty. Not at all, my queen, he said. Please let me explain. I am far too old to serve you, but my daughter is able and willing to help you complete what I cannot. Daughter? The evil queen asked. The doors at the end of the hall opened again. This time, a woman entered, dragging a large wagon behind her. She was tall and thin, with hair so dark red it seemed to have a violet tint. Her eyes were bright green, and her clothing was made entirely of plants and leaves and other greenery. The wagon she pulled contained a large square object. It was large and flat and was covered in a silk cloth for safety. After seeing her, the evil queen could recall a time many years ago when she had known the huntsman's daughter. She had always been a shy little girl and had lived with her father in the palace where the evil queen was on the throne. "You've grown up," the queen said. The huntsman's daughter nodded in her direction. "You will speak when I address you," the evil queen demanded. "My daughter is mute, Your Majesty," the huntsman said. "She's never said a word in her life. However silent she may be, it does not make her any less capable of doing what you ask of her. She's brought you a gift to prove herself." The huntsman's daughter carefully removed the object from her wagon and gently placed it beside the queen's magic mirror. I wonder what it is. Once it was positioned correctly, she removed the silk cloth. It was a mirror, smaller than the magic mirror. It was circular, with flowers engraved into a square garden frame. The evil queen knew exactly what it was the second it was revealed. "The mirror of truth," she said. The former queen had acquired it during her reign. It was another magic mirror that showed one's true self when one stood before it. "How did you get this?" the evil queen asked. "She broke into the palace to retrieve it for you," the huntsman said. The evil queen touched the mirror of truth's frame. She had forgotten a detail in the carvings. She turned and faced the huntsman's daughter. "You shall be my huntress," the evil queen declared. The huntress bowed and kissed the queen's hand. "What is the task at hand, Your Majesty?" the huntsman asked. "Have either of you ever heard of the wishing spell?" the evil queen asked. The huntsman and the huntress cautiously looked at each other. "No, my queen," the huntsman said, "unless you are speaking of the old foolish fable." "The very one," she said. "I never took it seriously until I recently heard a prisoner in the dungeon mumbling about it moments before his execution. According to the foolish fable, after a group of select objects are collected and placed together, the collector is granted one wish. It doesn't matter how great or small, the wish is granted to be granted. And, as you know, I have a wish to be granted." "You want my daughter to collect those items for you, then?" the huntsman asked. "Precisely," the evil queen said. "From what I've learned, the task is very dangerous and may take some time, but if she succeeds, I will consider whatever debt you owe diminished." The huntsman looked at his daughter, and the huntress nodded. "Very well," he said, "she will do it. What are the items you seek, my queen?" The evil queen took her place before her magic mirror, extending her open palms and gazed deep inside it. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, what must we seek for the wishing spell that grants all?" she asked. The ghostly silhouette appeared again. "Glass that housed a lonely soul up till midnight's final toll. A saber from the deepest sea meant for a groom's mortality. The bark of a basket held in fright while running from a bark with bite. A stony crown that's made to share found deep within a savage lair. A needle that pierced the lovely skin of a princess with beauty found within. A wavy lock of golden rope that once was freedom's only hope. Glittering jewels whose value increased after preserving the false deceased. Teardrops of a maiden fairy feeling neither magical nor merry." "There you have it," the evil queen said to the huntsman and huntress. But the magic mirror was not finished. "But listen to this, my fair queen, for I offer you a fair warning. For one wish you are willing to pay any price, unaware that the wishing spell can only happen twice, and the spell can only happen once more, for it was already used once before. In this castle as we stand, a duo move throughout the land. A young brother and sister collect at a quick pace, and may defeat my queen in the wishing spell race. The man in the mirror faded away, leaving the queen with the worst possible news. Not only was someone else after the object she needed, but if they were used before she could collect them, the spell could never be used again. She closed her eyes and thought about what her next move would be. She couldn't afford to have any more odds stacked against her. After a lifetime of work, she wasn't about to let 2 children stand in her way. I want you to start retrieving the items, the queen said to the huntress. I will handle the brother and sister, now leave me. The huntsman and the huntress bowed and left the queen alone in the great hall. The evil queen stood before the mirror of truth. Years of being a prisoner had taken its toll on her appearance. It was painful to see the aging woman who her reflection had become. She picked up her heart of stone and examined it closely, lightly stroking its sides. The evil queen looked back up at the mirror of truth. This time, there was no reflection of the disheveled woman she had grown into. This time, the face staring back at her was a youthful one. It belonged to a beautiful young maiden with pale skin and long dark hair. She wore a long white dress with a matching ribbon tied around the waist and was also holding the heart of stone. The girl smiled, but the queen did not smile back. She knew the girl in the mirror very well, and she was not Snow White. And that is the end of chapter 8. Wow. Okay, so huge plot twist. We knew Alex and Connor were on a journey to find all the wishing spell items, but now there's trouble because so is the evil queen. She's escaped the dungeon, and now she is also searching for the wishing spell items, and she knows about the twins. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm scared for the twins. I really hope you enjoyed that chapter. I'll have some activities and some questions you can answer in the description of this video. And tomorrow we will read chapter 9. Here's a sneak peek. It's called The Charming Kingdom, and that looks like Cinderella's glass slipper. So tomorrow will be chapter 9. I hope you enjoyed chapter 8. Do the activities, answer the questions, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.